G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Breaking Down the Charts. Apologies for this episode coming out on a Wednesday as opposed to usually on a Monday. We had some advancements coming through on the mining store community with some new setups for support. We've got a ticket system in place now, which everyone is well aware of, which takes care of any inquiries that people have, particularly with your mining operations. If you want to change your coins to a new coin or a new algorithm, or you need a request for any information, you can all do it through a ticket system rather than a private message now. So that's really good stuff, really improving the infrastructure that we've got in place there and making sure we take care of all our members as we expand. Now, bring it into the charts. It looks like Bitcoin's had a little bit of a pullback, which is almost warranted. I do believe that this pitchfork is really playing out quite nicely in terms of painting the picture of where the market is at, whether it's overbought or undervalued. It does seem that it's bounced just off this kind of midterm regression line, just didn't touch it. I put it as accurately as possible, as you can see up here from the top point in the market and the bottom. I suppose it does come down to which point you actually use. If you use this point back here, then we probably just actually touched it and broke through. Either way, we get an idea of where the market is as it's trending upwards through up towards this regression line. Overall, I think, as I say, Bitcoin's had quite a nice run. It was probably due to have a bit of a pullback. The RSI pushed on well beyond the 70% line, and that's kind of coming back down towards that 50% line now. So I don't think that we're going to break a price too much further than where it kind of broke out at that 11,000 mark. I would be very surprised if we broke through that, although we are quite close to it now at about 11,400. But I do think we'll find some support along here. Pretty much everyone in the mining store community has got a lot of their positions in Bitcoin right now. No one's really looking to sell off around these areas. Some of our more kind of day trader people are kind of cashing in and out between the 12,500 and the 11,000 mark. But overall, most people are kind of what we call hodling and holding for the long term. As we looked at last week, we went through the production rate of Bitcoin and how much it actually costs to produce a Bitcoin every week. And one of our more, say, savvy investors commented in the mining store community that it probably is actually a higher production cost when you actually take into account things like the infrastructure that you got to set up on a larger scale. Things like you have to pay employees to actually manage these operations, the property cost, the liquidation fees, everything like that. To actually produce Bitcoin and sell it out is probably at a bit of a higher rate. So overall, it could be anywhere between kind of 14 and maybe 15,000. Between here and I'd say 20,000 is probably an area that it costs to produce Bitcoin, depending who you are and how cheap your electricity is, what the price of the hardware you got, and what kind of scale of an operation you've got set up. So overall, I do think Bitcoin is quite heavily undervalued from a production side of things. Going into, let's have a look at Ethereum. Ethereum has obviously outperformed Bitcoin quite heavily over the course of this year. I do want to just harp on the fact that I feel that Ethereum is still heavily undervalued in the perspective of looking at how much development is actually going into this project. In the past 2-3 weeks, we've seen how high gas fees have got. There's a lot of transactions and a lot of data and processing that's going through the Ethereum network. The ecosystem that's being built up there is quite phenomenal, and it's scaling out as we go as well. So definitely well worth getting more researched and deeper into the Ethereum project and understanding a bit more about the different types of ERC20 tokens that are on the network and applications being built on the network. Overall, in terms of network activity, if you can use that as a gauge of where the price should be, I still think Ethereum is quite undervalued. Now, nevertheless, investors aren't always so rational and looking at these things, and we will come to key price levels such as the 0.04 level, where one Ethereum will buy you 0.04 of a Bitcoin. And I do think around here we will find a little bit of resistance. It's going to be hard for Ethereum to really push through here. As you can see, it quite heavily declined from this point and thought about holding this value here. It had a clear break off here. There'll be a lot of people that have been waiting since September 2018 to actually cash out some positions that they bought up here. Some of these people that got caught out up here are going to want to be taking profits around this area. So overall, I think at the moment, if you're looking to pick up some Ethereum, if it came anywhere close to this kind of 0.28 level, which is quite a decline, I would be thinking you'd be kind of crazy not to if you are looking to do that. Obviously, this is not financial advice, but just looking at things from a charting point of view. I think this is a fair price that you could look to pick some up if you're looking to get more skin in the game. But as I say, I do think up here is still a fair price as well. It's just kind of pulling in between this area, and I think what's more likely to happen is we'll trade between these two ranges here. So anything around here and definitely down here is heavily undervalued if you ask me. For those of you who have been getting involved with some of the DeFi projects and getting involved with things like Uniswap, there is a guide in the mining store community that you can definitely go and check out. If you jump in here and head across to our education channel or resources channel right here. If you jump in here, there's a guide which was published by one of our community members. So thank you very much for publishing that, Woodwardham. And you can check it out basically in here, right here, this MS Uniswap guide. Okay, this will give you everything that you need to understand from setting up a MetaMask wallet, connecting it to things like Uniswap, understanding things like slippage, and the rest of it. Okay, it is a bit of a dangerous place, I must admit. You've got to be careful. One of our other members, unfortunately, and he's quite a savvy investor himself, accidentally got scammed of some Ethereum because he clicked on an ad. When you type in Uniswap, Uniswap. There was an ad just up here that he clicked on, and it was actually a scam ad. When he connected his wallet to it, it did pull the funds out of there. So you've got to be careful, guys. That's not to discourage you from getting involved with things, but just do those due diligence things. Make sure you're on the right website when you're connecting into Uniswap, and you can follow the guide to get involved with that there. We will cover, obviously, DIA, Aleph, and Serum, or DIA and Aleph, which are purchasable on Uniswap and are part of this kind of DeFi space. But just a note out there to guys, just be careful. And obviously, there's the right people in the Mindstalk community. If you ever have a question, whether it be support or whatever it is, jump in here, ask the question. Someone's going to help you out, and we're all here to take care of each other and better this space together. Moving into RSR is something that I want to cover. Everyone knows that I cashed out of RSR, and potentially in hindsight, it wasn't the best decision. However, we were privy to some information through a strong investment group of ours, and I didn't think that was very favorable information for the project. I'm not in the game for bad-mouthing projects, and I haven't verified this information myself. However, I did think it could cause some issues, that haven't been realized for the RSR project coming up. I still think they're a great project. What they're achieving is absolutely awesome and needed in this space. And obviously, that's showing with the price action. But personally, I couldn't, happily sit there knowing that there could be an event coming up that could cause a bit of trouble for the project. So made the decision to cash out. A lot of you guys stayed in, which is absolutely awesome. I'm really happy for the gains some of you have made. It's been on an absolute run lately. Coming up from the first time we invested was back down here. I ended up selling out close to about here just before this run, but that's okay. And since then, if you stayed in, there's been an extra about 160% gain there. So awesome stuff to those of you who have been, jumping in and getting on some of these trades and not necessarily, just following what other people are doing, making your own decisions and following your own strategies. Obviously, that's paid off for some of you guys here, and that's really good to see. Just having a look at some fib levels. If we have a look at this retracement, let's take a look at how far it's kind of pushed up. So really getting close to, it pushed well past the 1.618 level in terms of an extension line and starting to push actually up to this 2.618. So for me, it's very rare that I actually see projects actually push past this 2.618 level. So I'd be very surprised if it did, particularly when we get such a large retracement down. But nevertheless, guys, it's definitely possible. It tends to be the larger you get a retracement down, the more leg work it has to move back up. Obviously, if you pull something in a little bit closer like this and only had a much smaller retracement, then you don't have to cover too far to get into those higher multiples. But with such a large retracement, that's quite a substantial bit of a value that's been gained there at 261% from the bottom. Okay, so overall, it's up to you guys. It depends what you're doing, whether you're trying to hold these projects for long-term gains. Overall, you don't go broke taking profits, as I commonly say. So have a think about whether you're going to hold these positions or what you want to do with them. But great stuff to those of you who didn't have weekends and stayed on this trade. Moving into DigiByte, and if you haven't noticed, a lot of the projects I'm covering at the start of this series is their long-term holds. So the Bitcoin, the Ethereum, RSR I covered just because I wanted to cover this massive run. But DigiByte is one of those longer term holds that we're still in. I still haven't taken profits. Probably should have taken a little bit of profit in hindsight up here. But at the end of the day, I am waiting for this kind of play to play well out and push out of this ascending wedge. It looks like we've entered back into this ascending wedge, and it's going to look to kind of bounce between and hopefully pop out at the end again and retest these levels. I may actually this time take some profits around here, but you never know what can happen if you do that. If you look at something like this and, oh yeah, I may take profits back when it was at all-time high, and then you get that next leg up. But overall, that's a part of developing your entry and exit strategy. So overall, I think, I do think that DigiByte's still doing great things. I've been doing a lot more reading, understanding DigiByte as a project, and the more I read, I really like, how they've set up their multi-algorithm, having 5 different algorithms rather than just one, and all of those algorithms, benefit different types of miners. That's a really great way to get decentralization, as opposed to, even Bitcoin, for example, that you can get these massive ASIC farms, and years ago when there wasn't as much competition, you got ridiculous amounts of the hash rate in the one place. It can cause issues such as 51% fork attacks, which you can go up and research yourself. Very unlikely to happen for Bitcoin now, being so much hash power on there, and things are spread a little bit more. But nevertheless, I think what DigiByte is doing to create a really truly decentralized project is one of the leading projects in the market, and I'm more than happy to keep this one in my long-term hold. As you can see, it's obviously had a massive run back in 2017. I still think we're pretty far off getting to what I would think is a fair price, maybe something closer to up here at this 1.618% fib line. I would be happy to take profits, or anywhere in between here and here. But overall, down at these lows, I think it's got plenty of plenty behind it to get higher multiples up here. And we're talking an extra, potentially 45% gain here, particularly when I entered in so low, through my mining, and have been accumulating over these months. I'm more than happy to hold this project for the longer term and sell out between here and here, and then hopefully hold the rest for even further recovery or price growth. Going into Loki, so Loki obviously had that DeFi announcement, and anything that goes up this fast always must come down, and in between it's kind of had a fair bit of price action in between. We found some price floors at around this level, and it looks like we're heading into a bit of a recovery. I'd like it to see it to kind of push through some of these moving average lines that we've got drawn on here, and start getting more of an upward trend forming again. I don't want it to see it kind of caught in this downward trend that we've got here. There was actually some things announced today regarding, well, not necessarily announced, and I'm talking with Simon about these, Simon from the actual Loki team, but there was a couple of exchanges that delisted a bunch of privacy coins because Australia has apparently had some regulations come out. I actually couldn't find any information on any regulatory changes surrounding privacy coins, so I'm looking in that in more detail. I'll announce in the mining store community as soon as I do find that out. Overall, I don't really think it has an over negative impact on the Loki project. My only concern would really be surrounding a lot of the project leaders being based in Melbourne and Australia, and if potentially there's bans on privacy coins, then potentially that could follow up some issues. But overall, it's a decentralized project. I'm more than sure that there's going to be development taken up overseas, or they could even move overseas to continue development. It may not even be an issue, guys, but I do like being transparent and just pushing out anything that may be on my mind. As I say, I'll keep everyone updated in the Mining Sword Discord when I find out more about that. But Simon did not seem to be worried about it at all. But he is looking into more detail, and he will get back to me. Going into DIA, so DIA is an Oracle project. I covered DIA, Aleph, and Serum in a bit more detail in last week's episode, if you want to jump back to those and have a look. Now, guys, when you're investing in new projects, it's really, really hard to kind of say where a fair price is. I ultimately will look at projects and kind of make an investment into them and wait to see maybe a 2x on these newer projects that I'm getting into at least. But nevertheless, guys, it's good to just keep up with the price and make sure it's not going into oblivion. But ultimately, I'm just holding these projects. I've got a lot of faith in them. They're just starting to hit kind of those mainstream media streams, and I really think DIA is another one of those Oracle projects similar to Teller, which if you look back, they have the same kind of release cycle. They have these massive runs, they fall down a bit, they start getting some price action, and then as they start building up their community and proving themselves, they start to get these huge multiples and run up. So, I'm looking to hold DIA as a longer term, or I'm willing to hold it as a longer term project. If we get ridiculous multiples really early, up into the kind of $5-6, I definitely will look to cash some out, not all. But yeah, DIA is one of those ones that I really think the Oracle space, between Link and TRB, needs a new addition, and someone that that's going to offer a bit, solve some of the issues that are going on there. So yeah, DIA is one of those ones that are part of my portfolio as a part of that kind of Oracle coin exposure. Aleph and Serum, as is covered in the last episode, they're kind of relating to each other with FTX's new decentralized exchange. Same kind of thing, guys. I'm really looking to hold Aleph into the $1.20, $1.50 range. Well up here. So all of this is just kind of noise for me. What's going on here? I could kind of draw in some lines and show what looks like market making good market making activity, and people and how those algorithms are working in the back end. But overall, as I say, it's kind of just noise for these projects that I've made my investment into. I'm looking to hold them for the longer term and get that kind of price action that, as I just showed on Teller, where you start to see this kind of price action build up, and then you get this absolute run up. So that's what I'm kind of waiting for these projects. If it happens in a month, great. If it happens in 2, that's fine. But holding myself in these projects, and I quite like the teams behind them and the projects and the fact that they're in DeFi and the rest of it. So being very patient with these ones, and as I say, happy to hold them. Going back into Compound, so we had a really, really nice trade with Compound. We picked it as it kind of got down towards this lower end here, and we sold it, pretty much at the top of the run that it did have, closer to the 38.2% line. So I think I sold for about 60% gain, and maybe I could have got 100, but you can never pick the bottom for an entry or the top for an exit. So overall, really happy with that one. I think Compound's great coin, guys. I think what it's doing is absolutely, fundamentally important for this industry. And overall, I do think Compound will do well. I think it's going to have, one of those similar classic cryptocurrency growth phases, which I've referred to a couple of times, with these big run-ups, these falls down, these accumulation phases, and then another run-up again. So I will look for a re-entry into Compound, anything around this 23% fib line. If I just draw that in for you guys here, and that old low that it got, anything down here, I'm going to start grabbing some exposure. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually just kind of ticked up off this line here and started pushing up towards the 61.8% fib line, and then started getting this up and down action before a further gradual or exponential increase. Okay, so it's going into that accumulation phase now, and yeah, I'm going to look to start getting my early entry positions again. Teller, I never actually got back into it, to be honest. I sold out probably too early, around the $26 per Teller. If we go to a USD chart, I can show you that. So yeah, I sold out a little bit too early, around this $27 mark. When I say too early, I still made some pretty impressive gains for where we picked it up at about the $5 to $7 range. 5x is nothing to be sneezed at. But nevertheless, I probably could have held it out a bit more with some strong hands, or I may look for some entries back. Again, similar to RSI, there's some things that I feel weren't resolved for me as an investor from speaking to the project directly, that I wasn't very happy about. So more than happy to sit out of this one. There's too much value in other projects, even in the parent assets, Bitcoin and Ethereum themselves. Or even some of these projects that are entering the Oracle space, like Chainlink and Teller, that I prefer to put my money into and get higher multiples. I try to consider myself, I suppose, as an investor. Sometimes you get caught up in the trading side of things and cutting in and out and getting a bit too cute with things. But nevertheless, I do think that it's better off just making a position and holding it for those multiples. There's never a case in cryptocurrency where you can just go, no, that's a dead project. Even I'm not even going to mention the name of one of the projects we were in years ago. Sorry, I kind of gave up on and didn't realize they'd make a coin swap with another coin, and even those actually turned into really good investments. So never lose hope in anything, and be patient, guys. If you have strong hope in a project, or you understand a project to a high level of detail, you never know when it can absolutely take off and pop off. It is the tech space. Tech companies always and projects are always have that ability to scale out very, very quickly. So be patient. Final one we will cover is Perlin. So I sold out of my Perlin at the perfect time. I think I picked up Perlin at around this area here when I was aware that they were kind of releasing a bit of a DeFi project. I sold out pretty close to the top, I reckon, around here and watched it go up a bit further. But now it's obviously kind of crashed well back down. Personally, I think this is the last time that I'll cover Perlin as a project. It was just a short-term visitor play, and these terms that I'm using are from the fund that we're setting up, by the way. So our fund focuses on parent assets, which are your Bitcoin and Ethereum. You've got your children assets, which are those projects that we see a lot of potential in, but they haven't matured yet. And then you've got your visitors, which are just those shorter-term plays. And this Perlin project for me was just a visitor project. I didn't get involved with it at all. I literally just kind of recognized that this DeFi space is pretty hypey and saw Loki release their DeFi project and saw what that did to the price. Had heard a bit of a rumor or had a bit of fact to it. So actually I could see the product that the DeFi product they were about to release, and I knew I had a very good feeling they was going to have this run up. So visitor project for me, not really getting involved with it, although apparently I think it does relate back to a bit of this Serum and Aleph and DIA stuff that's going on. But yeah, I'm not really going to get involved with this project too much more. So probably the last time I'll cover that one. Other than that, yeah, really great stuff going. There's awesome trading going on. People are doing really well with their trading. It's been absolutely phenomenal to see some of the members in the Mining Store Discord really develop their trading strategy and understanding of these markets. Some of the feedback has been quite touching, I would say, that I've had in private messages, people messaging through saying, they never really considered themselves an investor or between their mates, always thought that they never would really get ahead or anything like that. But just being a part of the Mining Store Discord has made them realize that they can start small and learn about the markets before getting too heavy into it. And they're really starting to become savvy investors, understanding the difference between the centralized space that they currently are in as opposed to the decentralized space. So that's been awesome. A lot of the guys that I've had calls with over the past few weeks, introducing them to Alan Cam, who are the guys that we're setting up our fund called Valkyrie with. It's been great to meet you guys and understand your journey in the cryptocurrency space a bit more. Overall, I think we're all doing the right thing and trying to achieve the same goal together. And it's been it's pretty awesome to have this opportunity to invest with guys who are from more of the traditional finance sector, but moved into the DeFi space, have a really strong understanding of projects, deal flow, and information, and pass that opportunity on to you guys through the form of a fund. So yeah, it's good stuff. And yeah, if anyone has any comments, leave them in the description in the section below. And yeah, happy trading throughout the week, guys. I'll touch base with you next week. All the best.